Hi, this is Spider-Man, and I'd love to stick around and listen to amazing spider talk, but Madam Web just told me Doc Ock is about to kidnap Mary Jane Watson, and well, a spider's gotta do what a spider's gotta do.
Too many who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the web's left out to tangle. In 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The amazing spider talk, the amazing spider talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the amazing spider
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, the founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at Superior Spider Talk.
We're back after a short break for the 26th episode of our coverage of Volume 4 of Amazing Spider-Man. We hope you all enjoyed this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture.
Yeah, Dan, I was out of town last weekend, so we didn't get to recording, so you can blame me, everyone, for having a week off. But now that we're back, for this episode, we will be discussing Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 26 by Dan Slott, Stuart Immonen, and then we'll read some comments and emails, give away some prizes, and discuss a fair amount of spider news that's fit to print. We take a week off, Dan, and all hell breaks loose.
Well, let's get right to it. Our discussion of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 26.
What's new?
All right, Dan. Well, here we are. This is part 2 of the Osborn legacy. It's we kind of get some fallout from what happened with the attempted assassination of Norman Osborn in the first part of the storyline, and the reveal of Silver Sable and her return to the land of the living, which, I mean, talk about shockers, because, you know, when someone dies in the comic, Dan, they never come back, right?
Especially when a week after they die, it's teased that they're not dead.
Right, exactly. And like Silver Sable is such like a landmark character that, you know, they would never play games with her living or dying, right?
I mean, we're being snarky, but it was nice to see Silver Sable back.
Yeah, she's back. She's back, and with a little bit of a backstory to it now here as well. I don't know if it's a backstory to how she's alive again, but at least in terms of her role in this story. But you know, I gotta say, from you know, just a general 1,000-foot overhead standpoint here, Dan. Osborn Legacy is a pretty good story through 2 chapters, right? I mean, like we got some good things cooking. Some good character moments. The Immonen's art is just on fire throughout. I'm grooving on this story.
I'm in the same place as you, Mark. I know what our grades on this story are, and we're lockstep together on this. I read your review, and it was just like peering into my own brain. Before we get into like the real meat and potatoes of what goes on in this story, I wanted to look back at the previous story where we had talked about this kind of cliffhanger at the end of the book. And I think we had said, like, yeah, it's cool that Silver Sable is back, and that was a fine reveal. But the more interesting thing was that she had her sights set on Harry Osborn. And that doesn't seem to be an element here in this story. I wanted to ask you, before we got into everything, do you think that in the previous issue that was a, like, art mistake, a writing mistake? Do you think that's going to come back? It doesn't seem to pertain to this story at all.
It's funny. The short answer to your question, Dan, is I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where if we don't get back to it, we can just say it's a mistake. But if we kind of start confirming one way or another, I feel like then people can point to that and be like, no, we meant this all along. It's kind of like the whole thing with the Man in Red during the lead up to Clone Conspiracy, where we started to kind of quibbling over the fact of, well, is this truly a mystery or is this not a mystery? And it seems to be another one of those things where if it's convenient, we can come back to it and lean on it. But otherwise, we might just want to say it's a mistake. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I was only asking because, to me, that was a really intriguing mystery, and I was hoping to see more of it. So I'm with you. I don't know what to label this, and I hope that it plays out into something greater in the future, because right now, and I like this about this issue, getting into the actual issue itself, that this is a pretty simple and straightforward story. And I think it really allows the writing to be clear, the motivations to make sense, the stakes to make sense. I don't know that I buy Osborn as a villain here, and maybe I'm not really supposed to. He's not really doing much evil stuff at this point, which is interesting too in its own right. But it will be cool if later down the line that element resurfaces to kind of give another layer to this story.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Osborn, we're supposed to kind of just be leaning on it's Osborn, and we know what he's about, and he's never up to any good, truly. But you're right. I mean, there's nothing in the context of these two issues. There's nothing to kind of be like, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? Why are we so ticked off? And I think to a greater point of analysis and criticism here, I mean, that's kind of my biggest issue with this story thus far. I mean, in the first issue, when Peter was kind of chasing after Norman, he said something to the tune of, well, I need a win. After everything I've been through the last few issues, I need a win. And that made sense, I felt, through the context of, I have an opportunity to get Norman Osborn. I'm going to go after him. But now that this story is kind of becoming more involved and there's more at stake, the I need a win justification for everything that Peter is putting on the line here doesn't really jive with me. And I think that's the one thing that's kind of keeping me from going all in on this story emotionally as a reader. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think we're meant, and getting back to my other point, is I think not only is it I need a win, but there's the added thing I'll do anything to take down an Osborn and the history that comes with Osborn. And we'll talk about this when we get to the end of the book, but there are some actions taken here by Peter that he's always gone after Osborn, but I've never seen him elevate the threat to this level based on no kind of villainous actions taken by Osborn within this individual story. I think, and you said this last week, if this had been a long boiling conflict between the two of them, and we did see Osborn's lackeys in issue 4 of this relaunch, but that's way long ago. It's if this was a continual thread, I think these motivations would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, even if we played up during Clone Conspiracy the fact that not only was Gwen back from the dead, but she was back from the dead after Osborn, we got a little bit of that being surfaced during that storyline, but we had some elements in that last story that really could have been mined here to remind us of the true evil that Osborn has kind of laid upon Peter. And we kind of are glossing over it and tap dancing around it, but we're not really. It's something that can be done, for me, very simply, and there seems to be some avoidance in that. And that's, like I said, it's not that I'm not involved or invested in this story, but it's like right now it's like this is a pretty cool story. I feel like if we really started to kind of hone in on the emotional stakes here a little more finely and a little more directly, this would be like, oh wow, this is a great story. This is setting up to be one of the better stories that we've gotten in the last 4 or 5 years. And instead it's just kind of like tap dancing on the circumference of that, and that's not a bad thing, but like it could be more. That's all. That's where my criticism comes in.
Well, we're talking about this now. Let's get into the details of it, because it is kind of the backbone of this entire issue, which is mainly an action-oriented issue, and that action is superbly illustrated. I mean, some of the better Spider-Man action we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last episode, Dan. I mean, you really gotta what's been the big change the last few issues? And it's Stuart Immonen, and I don't know, I don't want to keep this is not to disregard Dan Slott, but I'm gonna keep maintaining until I guess I'm proven incorrect that Immonen is just bringing out the best in Slott's storytelling right now. I mean, he is just driving the narrative with his visuals here, and we just got these compelling action sequences that are really driving the tension of this story and the drama, and I think Slott is kind of raising his game to match what Immonen is doing on an art level. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I love Immonen is really great at creating these, not to mention just splash pages, but his horizontal paneling, it's really wonderful and wide, and I can't think of anybody in the recent years that has captured Spider-Man in motion quite like Stuart Immonen has here. I mean, yes, we get these high-speed chases with blurred artwork in the background, and the coloring in this book is out of control. We get those kind of neons that we've gotten used to throughout this, Parker Industries run of Volume 4, but the kind of free, looseness of colors is great. The green colored Osborn tech, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I made a joke that in my review that I just kind of love the fact that Osborn just can't drop that purple and green motif. It's like having a cell phone with your old exchange on it. You just can't drop that area code. You know what I mean?
Well, he can't drop the Goblin persona either. He's handing out business cards with the Goblin Army insignia on it. And I mean, where do you get those business cards?
I don't know. I don't think he's doing it through Etsy or anything. I mean,
yeah, I mean, but so let's get into that. So what he's doing right now in this story is that Osborn is creating his own tech. In a way, he's kind of gone back to what he was doing before he went insane. He's creating this tech to sell to various military personnel. I'm guessing that's what he was doing in Africa, is, selling tech to the warlords there. And he's using, or he takes advantage of Spider-Man getting involved to showcase, his upgraded gliders and armored tank-looking things with legs. I love tanks with legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mech warrior, mech robot stuff is great.
It's very Star Wars, but that works, so why complain?
Right. And Spider-Man kind of busts in on this. One of the things that I thought was kind of odd about this, and talking about the Goblin persona, is this is going to be me projecting my dream version of this. But imagine a version of this story where we have Parker Industries, and he has a company rival that's also doing tech that's not Osborn, and they've been tech rivals all the way up to this point throughout the series. And then in this issue, we find out that his tech rival is, Norman Osborn. I think that could have been a cool flip on the identity thing, because what I don't really get here is that, everybody knows Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin in this universe. Why is he still projecting that while wearing an alternate face? He's giving out cards with the Osborn symbol on it. He should be doing this secretly.
Right.
And he's like only like halfway there, you know, like he's got a new face. Why not like make it completely a mystery and obscure it?
No, I agree. I mean, it's like, you know, the whole premise behind this new status quo for Norman was that, you know, he was kind of operating under a shroud of mystery and secrecy, and, you know, him going around with business cards and purple and green gliders. I mean, that just kind of, you know, ruins the subtleties of anything he's trying to do right now, you know?
I mean, I know it would be probably the same you'd probably knock it for being the same twist as the ending of Superior Spider-Man, but I think, like, in this instance, if there was a long, like, built-up character or something, and the reveal was the man under the face is Norman Osborn, like, that could actually be really interesting, because he's not crazy. He wouldn't identify himself. And he's back to his old things. I like what Dan Slott is doing here now. I just think there was an opportunity to do something like, you know, even more subversive with it.
So what else kind of stands out to you in this issue? I mean, you know, for me, Dan, I mean, not to go back to more general things, but like this entire issue just feels very simple in its approach in a good way. Like I think I used the phrase in my review, like, you know, we're playing the hits here. But the hits work, you know, like this just feels very, to me, like this is one of the best uses of the Parker Industries status quo, because we're finally getting a story here where it's a Peter Parker, it's a Spider-Man story with the added twist of the resources of Parker Industries behind it. Whereas, you know, I don't think we could have said that about a lot of the earlier stories. I mean, there was kind of, I mean, Clone Conspiracy was its own animal altogether, but even kind of going back to like the stuff with the Zodiac and Mr. Negative and Cloak and Dagger, I mean, it just kind of felt like we were reading, you know, not to kind of play into the lazy critique of, oh, it's Iron Man, but with Spider-Man. But there was just something kind of foreign about it in terms of a Spider-Man story, where this is like, no, these are Spider-Man stories. It's just, you know, with the added benefit of that, the fact that he owns his own company and has money and has tech at his disposal. But you know, just kind of the general morals and ethics and dramas that come with Spider-Man, they are all very familiar. They all seem kind of at home here, right?
Yeah, I like that, and I like the kind of added additional layer of like you know, having to work with S.H.I.E.L.D. and what does it mean that Spider-Man is operating on a global scale as a vigilante? You know, like, can he do that? Can he pursue his Spider-Man endeavors, in this case bringing down the Green Goblin, in a way that like doesn't violate international law or peacekeeping efforts? You know, and I thought there's an interesting wrinkle with, you know, Bobby Morse having to, you know, Mockingbird having to check out halfway through the issue because, you know, they're trying to keep a low profile in China. And you're wondering, like, yes, with the added ability comes added scrutiny, which is kind of like where we get to at the end of the issue, which I think is a genuinely interesting place to put Peter and Parker Industries, even if I don't think it's entirely earned.
Yeah, but it's something, and we're playing with the old standbys of power and responsibility, and with just a new twist.
So there's a couple of moments I wanted to highlight with Silver Sable that I thought were kind of a little off to me. There's a moment during this high-speed bike chase, which is really great, where Sable like flip kicks a guy off a bike and he hits this like electric sign, and Peter, you know, immediately harps on her like, is he alive or not alive? And I want to institute a new like continuing question on this show. I'm going to call it, this is modeled after the 538 podcast. They do a thing called good use of polling or bad use of polling. And this is now good use of Parker guilt or bad use of Parker guilt. What do you think? Was this warranted? Is like how many times? Because this is something that comes up all the time. Is anytime anybody takes any action like he starts like, you know, kvetching about it, you know, like
it's certainly a crutch, you know, and to me, anytime it's used as a crutch is a bad use of Parker guilt. You know, it needs to feel a little more organic than this. I mean, you know, we have this story right now where he seems kind of driven beyond precedent to take down Osborn, and yet here he is quibbling over the life of a maskless goon. And not saying that he shouldn't be being Spider-Man to the end here, but I'm with you on this one. It seemed a little silly. It's like, okay, I mean, we need to remind people that Sable is a bit of a mercenary, and that's part of her character. Although I will say, to the credit, like, we're finally getting some elements of sympathy to what's going on in her story right now that we've never really had before. Which is, for me at least, because I'm not a big Silver Sable fan, Dan. I mean, I don't know. And no disrespect to the legendary Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz. I know Silver Sable is one of their big character creations from that great run that they did, but the character has always felt very flat to me because, you know, she's a merc. You know, like what? There's no fun in a merc to me in the world of Spider-Man. I don't know. Does that make me too black and white? I don't know.
No, I don't love her as a character. I think there's potential for her to be an interesting character. I think she was interesting in the Ultimate Spider-Man series, where that kind of played that merc thing to, like, I think a more interesting point than we've ever gone with her. And you're right, I agree with you. I like what they've done with her here. But that gets back to my point, is that, you know, this beat during this chase, like, is intended to make us think, oh, like, maybe we can't completely trust Silver Sable because she's just willing to kick a guy off a bike, and when questioned, she's just like, yeah, sure, he's fine, whatever, you know,
right.
Like, without really knowing. But then, you know, 10 pages later, Peter is willing to, like, lay down the line, like, his entire company and all of his money without question to save the people of her country. So, like, if
right.
you're going to introduce this doubt, like, why not, you know, bring that up later? Like, he's just totally on board later, like, you know, just a few pages later.
No, I agree. And that kind of goes back to the central issue I have with Peter's characterization here. But you know, there's no answer to that right now, Dan. But no, I agree. I mean, it's what are we actually going for here? But I'm ready to move past kind of hitting the pause button on a narrative to kind of point out Peter's overall insecurities and guilt issues, because we know who this character is at this point. I don't know. Like, do we really need to kind of stop everything to point out a possible objection he would have in a passing moment like this? Because I don't see the value in it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like that moment, save those panels and use those panels to bolster, you know, Peter's motivation at the end of this book a little bit more.
Yeah, like, oh man, I'm about to put my company on the line. Am I sure that this is worth it? You know, am I sure that Sable's to be trusted? And we don't have that.
Yeah. You know, this actually reminds me. This is going to sound name droppy, but I was having breakfast with Mark Guggenheim a few weeks back.
Like you do.
You know, like you do. This is my life now.
Okay.
And he was telling me something that, you know, has really changed the way he writes comics, is that Marvel went from 23 pages down to 21 pages for a comic. And he said, like, he could really feel those 2 pages. Like, during Brand New Day, they had 23 pages. And when Dan Slott took over the book, like, either at the time of or shortly thereafter, it went down to 21 pages. And he said he could really feel like he was cutting muscle to remove those 2 pages from a book. And he would have conversations with Dan Slott who expressed the same thing. And, like, I wonder, like, if there were 2 more pages in this book, that would be enough to really flesh out all of these motivations. And it's something I think about every time I read a book now. Like, what would 2 more pages do? You know,
or would we have just gotten like a Miley Cyrus ringtone joke?
Yeah, well, I mean that's certainly true too.
Sorry, I'm being glib. That's terrible. Mark, shut up.
But still, I mean, it's an interesting thing to consider. Like, comics are different than they were 5-7 years ago, whatever, because there's less of it to tell a story.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And that's certainly like it's something I like wish I knew back in my earlier critiques. You know, like I mean, I guess I knew it, in, like looking at the page number on my digital account because I'm not reading a comic and counting the pages, but. I could see that really kind of like making it tough to adjust, someone who's used to a certain amount of space to tell a story.
Mm.
Anyway.
No, I think that's pretty cool.
The other Sable thing I wanted to talk about is her return and the kind of like non-justification of how she came back. Like, if we get it down the line, fine. But, like, if this is where
it ends, not good.
Yeah, like, I'm just back, whatever. That's not going to be enough for me.
It's like, for those who follow pro wrestling, it's like when the character all of a sudden, like, turns heel and, like, betrays his partner, and then the next episode comes out and opens up Monday Night Raw and goes, I don't owe you an explanation. That's what we got here. And it's lazy when it's done in wrestling, and it's kind of lazy when it's done in comics. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get something. I mean, I do like the fact that, like, Simcaria is kind of like this. Like, how would we describe what's happened to Simcaria? It's like a totalitarian state now, right, or something, because of Osborn and his minions.
Did anybody notice this going on?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we're under a populist revolution everywhere right now, Dan. I mean, who can keep up?
Well, nobody really knows where Simcaria is anyway.
No. I mean, did they vote out of the EU, or I mean, are they?
I don't know. Another rule maybe I could institute is good use of pop culture or bad use of pop culture. Because I'm going to put a vote in good use of pop culture in this book with the Jaws explosion. Yeah.
Oh, please. Great. That's a good one. And that's because it's Jaws. That's classic pop culture. If you can make a Jaws joke or a Jaws reference in that fashion, that's great. Like the problem is not to be, again, overly glib, but in recent years, we weren't getting Jaws references, Dan. We were getting Sharknado references.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, I mean, like Jaws, all-time great movie, and he made a great reference to it. Sharknado? Well, I don't know, Dan. You're the movie guy. What do you think of Sharknado?
I actually don't like those kind of movies because, intentionally bad movies don't do it for me. Like, bad movies by accident are great. Like Jupiter Ascending and Gods of Egypt, sign me up. I love those. I was there opening night for both of those movies.
Okay. Well,
but
good for you.
Sharknado, no. Do you want to talk about the ending here and Peter's moral precipice or whatever you want to call it?
Right. Well, I mean, it's been a couple of weeks, Dan, but from my understanding, it's Peter is ready to go into Simcaria to kind of liberate it, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of stepping up and like, okay, well, we can't back Parker Industries because Simcaria is its own independent nation. That didn't stop S.H.I.E.L.D. during Secret War, mind you.
Yeah, that's true.
We can go into Latveria and mind control people, but whatever, it's fine. But yeah, so it's Parker Industries is now being treated like a rogue state. So
that's a AIM and Hydra is what they make the comparison.
So that's pretty bad. I mean, I don't know. This seems like this could be the end of Parker Industries, Dan. What do you think?
I think we've seen that end signaled so many times, and that's a problem, I think, this over-signaling of major plot beats. It just seems like, Parker Industries is going to end. The bigger surprise would be if it doesn't end.
Yeah, but we're hit. That's where we're at. And but it's it's a pretty huge step. And to me, I mean, bigger than this, and this goes all the way back to the very first thing we were talking about for this issue. I mean, this is a big line for Peter to be crossing, regardless of what the status quo is. I mean, you know, for him to be putting this much on the line, whether it be his company or whatever, you know, he's crossing a pretty huge line in terms of responsibility. You know, he has the power to do what he's about to do, but is this a responsible use of that power? And that's always, of course, central to everything that goes on in the world of Spider-Man comics. And does that feel justified? Does this feel like an earned red line to be crossing?
I don't know. I think I'm like in the middle on this, because I like the idea that with so much power, he, you know, has the responsibility to like utilize it in some way and not be worried about maintaining power. Like,
yeah, I mean, because like, let's also keep in mind, Dan, that like at the core of this, you know, kind of talking about true Spider-Man moments or whatever. I mean, like, Spider-Man is someone who has routinely, over the course of his existence, has made decisions that have bucked convention and bucked kind of like the mainstream Marvel hero edicts, because, you know, based on his views on what should be the responsible decision, it's the right decision. And I feel like this kind of fits into that to a degree, right? I mean, like, you know, he's using his power in a way that could be seen as a gross misuse of power, but, you know, Symkaria is being taken over by this truly evil force, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is playing by like these kind of upper crust versions of diplomacy and what's right and what's wrong, and like you're kind of like, well, that's not right either. And that's always like that gray area is always where Spider-Man's kind of fit in. So there is.
I mean, it's the like, are the cops going to solve it, or do I have to take action, like just written on a much grander scale?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always like, you know, not to relitigate stories from the past, but always kind of my issue with the whole Civil War thing, where it's like I don't know if I would ever see Spider-Man siding with the government, you know, like it's kind of like, you know, that doesn't seem to be where the character's at. I mean, you know, what's kind of always been great about this character is Marvel has always kind of put him in these scenarios where he's with other Marvel heroes, but it's there more because he doesn't work well with them, and it causes natural conflict because of his own moral code and the way he operates. I mean, that's what makes Marvel Team Up such a great read, if you like those kind of comics.
Yeah.
I do. I bought some old Marvel Team Ups, Dan. I'm buying old comics again.
That's great to hear.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's
you're like, whatever, Mark. Get back to the story.
No, but like I agree with you. I think the things that I would have needed to be 100% on board with this, and his kind of avant-garde thinking, is more than one panel about Symkaria and the situation going on there. Because it's not enough for me to buy into it. What?
Yeah, that's where those 2 pages come in.
Yeah. Like I'm not buying into the immediacy of Pit Parker's actions. You know, like,
those 2 pages and a Miley Cyrus ringtone. Yeah,
I'll even take a Miley Cyrus ringtone if I could get more on Symkaria. And,
there you go.
And the other thing is, like, Peter is an impetuous guy. Like, he often jumps into situations. Like, in Superior, he was the one willing to jump in front of the train to save Anna Maria. That's, like, the kind of guy he is. Like, he'll jump in with, like, you know, without the, you know, really analyzing the risk to himself. Except the problem in this issue for me is Harry Osborn literally, and all of the people in his company literally lay out all the problems with this for like 2 pages before he's like, yeah, I'm still going ahead with it. So it's like he can be like rash and you know, and make a quick decision, except that everybody's already told him
right
the negative benefits of that or whatever.
There you go. All right, Dan.
I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's very fair.
Okay, all right. That's fair.
You want to grade this thing?
Yeah, let's give it a grade. I'm going to give it a B.
As you indicated before this episode really got into the thick of things, I'm also right there with you with a B.
Great. I'm excited to read more of this book. I think the ending with the Bobby and Mockingbird was a nice little sting. Not as intriguing as the previous sting, but an interesting one nevertheless.
Yeah, although I will like to say I still don't care about Peter and Bobby as a couple.
I don't either, but like I'm imagining her as like a police officer going in to stop Spider-Man, and that's an interesting story.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get to some comments and emails.
Mark, we get a lot of comments and emails this week, so all of your pitches seem to be working. But how can people contact us?
Yeah, of course, if you want to send us your thoughts and dreams and questions and everything in between, Dan, you can, of course, leave us comments on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, whatever, and a rating because that helps us grow as a community. You can email us at amazingspidertalk@gmail.com. You can tweet at us and hashtag it OK2Print. Of course, there is the 9 Red Goblin. I don't think we got any phone calls this time, but we got so many emails, it doesn't matter. I'm going to read through this first email here. It's from Tim Peterson. Tim writes in, your discussion on the latest podcast about what will happen to your collection in the future reminded me of a plan I have for a collection of my own. It's not comics, but every Christmas I get a new carved wooden figure for my nativity set, shepherds, animals, wise men, etc. They're not cheap, but I only get 1 or 2 pieces a year. I'm up to about 30 pieces. My plan is to build the collection to a big enough size that I can split it among my 3 kids when they're grown or when I'm dead, on the condition that they use their 1/3 to start a collection of their own. Hopefully, they'll slowly build their own set, and my one collection will grow into 3 collections. If they pass down the tradition, in a few generations, there could be dozens of collections that all grew out of mine. It'd be great if they were all different, representing different ways my family has branched out. You can come up with something similar for your collections, unless you're worried it could spark family divisions if the collection evolved differently. It would be a shame if the Ginocchio or Gvozden family reunion in 2099 devolved into fistfights between factions debating whether or not annuals count. Well, I mean, we know in my family where things will always stand on that day.
This is like the new Hatfields and the McCoys.
My son is going to besmirch my name by starting a collection of just annuals.
I like this idea. I don't know that I'm going to have kids. I mean, I might. And if I do, it'd probably be just one, like you, Mark.
Right.
So, like, we could maybe divvy it up somehow, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is a cool idea. I don't know that I would want to basically like burden my family with having to collect Amazing Spider-Man issues, but yeah, I think this is a cool tradition from Tim.
Yeah, I mean, you know. I don't know if I should be admitting this here, but, you know, we have a tradition in my household where for our Christmas nativity, we like to add bobbleheads that we've accrued over the years to the nativity.
Who likes to attend baby Jesus' birth in your family?
Exactly. So a lot of it's sports figures, but, you know.
I was surprised it wasn't Secret Wars action figures.
Well, they've showed up too.
Okay.
And there were some Ninja Turtles one year. It's great. Anyway.
What kind of Beyonder world is this?
Exactly. Welcome to Battle World, folks.
Yeah.
No, this is a cool tradition. I mean, I kind of like the idea of things kind of repopulating, but I don't know how to do this out of comics. I mean, And yeah, I mean, as of right now, it's one child, and you know, maybe there'll be a second child at some point. But to say that if there's just one, that it kind of, you know, I pass it on to him, and then what? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough, Dan. What do we do?
I don't know, but we got a long time to figure it out.
All right, fair enough.
Hopefully.
All right. What's our second email?
Our second email comes from Michael, and he asked me to butcher his last name, but I'm going to give it a genuine shot. Passo?
That's what I would have said.
Yeah, Passo, Passio.
Sounds very French Canadian, Dan.
It does, and actually, he has a comment about that later, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Okay,
oh,
sorry.
Boy. Mark and Dan, what up, fellas? I found your bonus episode to be very interesting as you broached a particular topic that I find distressing. Said topic being the life expectancy of our beloved tangible paper comics. I understand the economic draw for publishers to push for digital distribution, and I also appreciate how amazing modern comics look in digital format, but I don't want that to be my only feasible option. I'm afraid that one day they'll either stop printing comics or they'll become expensive to justify the purchase. Regretfully, if this were to happen, I believe I'd have to walk away from comics. When you purchase something from a service such as iTunes or Marvel Unlimited, you're only purchasing access to the media on their servers, or you have to log into their service to access your purchases. You really aren't getting anything. It's the snake oil of our time. Marvel almost went bankrupt. I know it's far-fetched, but what if that were to happen now? Who would pay to keep those servers running? All the comics I purchased would be gone because I never really had anything to begin with. Okay, that's the end of my rant. May paper comics live forever. And he says also, now on to Canadian bacon. I wholeheartedly agree that it is inferior to domestic bacon, but if you just think of it as little ham slices, it's perfectly fine. And at the end of the day, it's irrelevant because pork roll is the ultimate breakfast protein.
Whoa.
Thanks for the podcast, guys. It's the highlight of my week.
That is the hottest take I've ever heard about pork roll.
I'm not backing the pork roll.
Is he from Jersey, this guy? Because that's a pork roll. The only people I know who are like all about the pork roll are Jersey people.
Maybe there's a Jersey contingency in Canada.
I don't know. Like my dad, when I was a kid, my dad would bring home pork roll from the deli, and my mom would just be like, "Why are you bringing home like pig lips and pig toenails as a cold cut meat? That's ridiculous."
I'll tell you what, though, I'm a huge fan of Scrapple, which I don't think is too far off.
I've never had Scrapple, but I would eat it. I would try it.
You're down in Maryland for my wedding. We're gonna have some Scrapple together.
If there's some Scrapple somewhere, I'm all about it. I'm not afraid of like weird. I mean, Dan, I'm about to get really off target here, but when I was in Italy for my honeymoon, you know what the best thing I frickin' ate was?
Squid ink pasta?
No. Well, that was good too, but no. Best thing I ate in the Mercato de Central in Florence was a tripe sandwich.
Oh.
Tripe that was just perfectly cooked and tender with red and green salsa on a ciabatta roll with a glass of wine.
That does sound pretty good.
But yeah, anyway.
I want to cycle back to the Canadian bacon before we get to the main question.
Sure.
Is that like if you're going to invoke the name bacon, you don't get to say like little ham slices, you're fine. Like be Canadian ham, okay. Canadian bacon, the word bacon is sacrosanct.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is, you know, I feel remiss in this always relitigating this, Dan, but it's like if I want a ham, how about like do like a ham steak? You know what I mean? Like I went to Vegas for the first time a few months ago, and you know, like there was the breakfast buffet, which was just this total decadent awfulness that was awesome. But then like the standard breakfast, it was like 3 eggs with your choice of meat: bacon, sausage, or ham steak. So like, who wants Canadian bacon? Get ham steak.
Canadian bacon though is good on an Eggs Benedict.
Yes, that is the one acceptable time to have Canadian bacon.
Great. Okay. Topic adjourned or whatever.
All right, but digital comics, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything he pretty much says here about digital comics.
I mean, I feel like it probably will go the route of like vinyl. It'll be more expensive to get the paper, and digital will be cheaper, and that's just the future. It just is. Like, comic audiences are small, and yeah. No, but at the same time, Image and like a bunch of other smaller publishers make their digital downloads DRM free. So you can literally download a CBR file or a PDF file so that you can maintain ownership if their servers go down. I don't really foresee Marvel doing that, and that's our fault because people steal comics and share comics. I think it would be really great of Marvel to just say people are going to read them legally or illegally, and we're going to give you the DRM-free code, but I don't really see them doing that in the future.
All right. Can I get to this last email here?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is from Peter Haggard, which is a great, kind of, descriptive last name. He writes, Dan and Mark, I'm really loving your podcast. I only discovered it a couple of weeks ago, but I'm hooked. I especially love your Essentials episode and have been listening my way through all of them. It sounds like you only intend to do a total of 30 Essential episodes. Is there something that will come after that? I really love the retrospective look on old Spider stories and hope you continue to do something similar, even if it's something like the worst Spidey stories or the best villain stories. I'd love to hear more of the history of Spider-Man. Thanks for making the best Spider-Man podcast.
Mark, so I thought we could take this question as a time to kind of address the future of the show. Yes, we're only doing 30 Essentials episodes because that's what we kind of claimed to the start. In the coming months, I'm going to be getting married and going to be kind of traveling around a lot. So that might put a kind of a weird break in our schedule. And I don't know how we want to say this, Mark, but the show is going to continue, obviously, but we might be doing some very dramatic restructuring of the show in coming months.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. And I mean, I hope that I'm not surprising you in saying this, Dan, but I think no matter what we do, I think kind of the there will continue to be a focus on the past in Spider-Man in what we do, right? I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I think even more of an emphasis on it coming up.
Yeah.
Does that sound fair?
I think so too. I guess what I would say is when things change, we will not be focusing exclusively on new content, on new issues.
I think Peter will be happy.
Yes. He will not be haggard over our changes.
But he will be all the same.
But he'll be haggard just listening to it. Because that's his name. But yeah.
So I guess, pay attention because there's going to be some big announcements coming down the pike.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you like the Essentials. We like the Essentials, and that's probably reflected in how we talk about them. But yeah,
it'd be weird if we didn't like our Essential picks.
God, I hate talking about great Spider-Man comics from the past. Boring.
It's not like you even had a blog about it or anything.
No. Terrible. All right, Dan. Why don't we talk about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club?
It's the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. It's the club with the incredibly long-winded name. Yeah, the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. Time for new members to get 15 minutes of fame. And maybe even win a prize.
Well, everybody, it's that time of the show where we talk about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. It's our fan club on Patreon where you guys help support the show, and we give you all kinds of goodies and additional content and things in the mail, et cetera, and you kind of just help us continue. And we like to do these raffles, and a couple episodes ago, I announced we were raffling off Mark's favorite book, Spider-Man Reign.
Yeah, so congratulations to Brandon Murray. You got a great comic.
What's even greater about this is it is out of print, this book. So he's going to get a comic that he couldn't really pick up anywhere except for getting it used or whatever. So it's a brand spanking new one. So check your mailbox, Brandon Murray.
We swear this is not a punishment.
At least I don't think so.
No. Dan loves it. It's essential if it was up to Dan.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. All right, cool. So if you want to put your name in the raffle box and get all kinds of cool things in the mail other than the raffles, even for just the price of a comic a month, you can join our friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club by clicking on the button on both of our sites that will get you there. That's enough about that, Mark. Let's talk about some spider news.
Give me pictures of the Spider-Man. I need something that's front page news. I want to see him slinging those webs around. I want to make him look like a fool. We need to get this vigilante. Let's up the ante. Take off his mask. Give me some spider news.
All right, Dan, we got a fair amount and some late-breaking stuff with C2E2 as we're recording this, but to top it off, we talked with Brian last episode about some Scoopy Scoops with some Bendis comics, and now we got a little bit more on Spider-Man 2. That's going to be the Miles and Peter team up or meet up or whatever you want to call it. Like, it looks like we're finally going to get the resolution to the end of the first Spider-Man of who is the Miles Morales in 616.
And I don't know if I care all that much, but I'm still excited about this book because I think Bendis has been holding back the goods on Miles and his backstory in Spider-Man for a while, and I'm hoping that this is the book that solves all of that and reinvests me in Miles.
I did enjoy that we got a tweet last night, Dan. It wasn't hashtags, but I'm going to share it anyway, where someone was speculating that Miles Davis could be the Miles of the 616.
I haven't seen that.
There's no cooler character than that,
That is true. That is true. Yes, you heard it here. Scoopy Scoops, Miles
Scoops.
Davis. So, that's going to be starting up this summer.
July, right?
Yeah, so that's exciting. Maybe
definitely.
Well, and I think maybe we'll even talk about it here. Well, Brian back on, we could do like another crossover.
That sounds splendid, Dan. Depending on where the show is at that point.
That's true. That's true. Don't freak out, everybody. We promise it'll be just fine.
It'll be great. The next thing is, Dan, talk about crazy stuff I didn't think I'd see in my lifetime. A teaser for a Cloak and Dagger TV show?
I know we had talked about this before, but now it's actually a real thing. This is on Freeform, which is like the new name for ABC Family. And I thought we were going to get like kind of like a, something along the lines of like the CW's DC stuff, which is kind of like intentionally a little like, corny and stylized. And this looks like something completely different than that. And I thought was really neat. What did you think, Mark?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just want to say as a sidebar here, not as another opportunity to plug my upcoming book, 100 Things Spider-Man Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die.
It seems very much like a plug.
Available June 1st. But I spoke for the book with Ed Hannigan, who is the artist who co-created Cloak and Dagger with Bill Mantlo. And Ed Hannigan said, like, basically to me when I asked him about, and this was back in like September, October when I spoke to him about this. I was like, so what do you think with this TV show, Freeform, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh my God, they've been talking about Cloak and Dagger on TV forever. I'll believe it when I see it, and I don't think I'm ever going to see it. That was Ed Hannigan. Like, he's like, I'd love to see it because it'd be great for me, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, no, what's so funny about it is that, like, for the first, like, minute and a half, there's no Cloak and Dagger stuff. Like, It looks like a teen drama. And, like, a pretty decent teen drama at that. Like, there's, and also, like, invokes elements of, like, race and privilege. And I thought it was really interesting. And then suddenly they're, like, dead and like, she's holding a dagger of light. And I was like, whoa!
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. All I know is my favorite ABC Family show of all time is still Bunheads. Yeah, I liked it. Go away, people. So if this could beat Bunheads, we're in good shape. All right.
Yeah.
So,
and
have you watched Bunheads, Dan?
I've not, but my sister has, and I know that she really liked it. I don't know if that's a ringing endorsement, but
I like your sister.
Well, wait till you see.
It has Broadway people in it. My wife's an actress. Just go with it, okay?
I heard it's great. It's the same person who did Gilmore Girls, right?
It is. Amy Sherman Yes.
Is that it? Amy Sherman Palladino? I was going to say Genji Cohen, but that's not right.
Oh, that's Weeds and like Orange is the New Black and all that.
Yeah. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, but like watching this, it had like the Roxxon tease.
Yep.
It makes me think that we're going to be getting the ultimate version of these characters where they're younger and Roxxon is kind of behind their transformation. I don't know if you remember that story, but it's kind of like it's less drug oriented, which I think makes sense. I've already seen people being like, "Oh, it doesn't look like drugs play a big deal in this." And I'm like, it's not the 80s anymore. Like, we're not war on drugs and just say no anymore. Like,
unless it's got a robotic Antonio Silvermane in it, I'm not interested. Or not Antonio, whatever. The Robo Silvermane. Unless it's got him in it, I'm not interested.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess they could address the opioid epidemic. It seems like a weird place for the show to go.
Well, the fact that you're so disregarding of the opioid epidemic shows why we lost, Dan.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway, no, it looks good. I'm into it. I'm just also not for nothing glad that Marvel is kind of finally expanding its TV offerings beyond the Netflix. I've actually we haven't even addressed Iron Fist. I haven't watched much or any of it yet. I'm kind of getting a little bored with Netflix Marvel right now, so I'm kind of curious to see what they do on regular TV again with some, more guidelines, I guess.
I've not watched any of Iron Fist, and I couldn't finish Luke Cage. I think they're all just too long. It's too many episodes.
Agreed.
The same thing.
And Shield has been surprisingly good this season. That's why That's another reason why I'm kind of like, okay, let's see what they can do in some other formats. So that's good stuff.
Cloak and Dagger. Weird. We're in a weird time.
We are. Don't let Ed Hannigan know, because I don't think he's going to believe you. Just a kind of quick thing. I mean, it looks like we've kind of speculated about this, Dan, about Dan Slott's schedule of comic book writing going forward. Would he be going monthly, whatever? It seems like that's kind of half true right now. Do you want to kind of describe what's going on here?
Well, I mean, if anybody who saw the new solicit, for July, there's only one issue in July. And, we just came off of a couple-week break from the book. In May, there's only one issue, but June has 2 issues. So I'm wondering if we're going to get like maybe 16 a year or 18 a year instead of the like 20-some that we were getting. We had Christos Gage on the show who stressed that Slott had a hard time meeting deadlines, and I think that's a pretty well-known fact, I guess, or a well-known rumor is that Slott has a hard time making deadlines. He's also writing Silver Surfer, so it seems natural that they might, roll it back a little bit. And I'm hopeful that it makes the book better. We're liking it right now, but, I can only hope that he takes that extra time and invests it into making it an even better book.
Yeah, we'll see. But it definitely could use a little injection and maybe a little. Because the fact of the matter is, Dan, when you go all the way back to Brand New Day and all that, it was 3 times a month because they had done away with all of the ancillary series and whatnot. And that's just not where we're at anymore. So it doesn't really make sense to be pumping out Amazing with that level of frequency anymore.
Yeah, especially with Spectacular on the horizon, which we got some preview art and stuff for this week, and I thought it looked really rad. I can't wait to read that book.
Absolutely. So kind of speaking of Amazing and changes on the horizon, this came out of C2E2 this weekend, Dan. The new Marvel Legacy Initiative. I guess if you're an old school fan, this is right up your alley. Why don't you talk a little bit about it, Dan?
Yeah, this seems to me like why they didn't respond to the New York Times asking them to speak. It's like this is, speaking of our last episode, seems like a direct reflection of all of those woes. It's them trying to fix the problem. And here's what's changing. They, quote-unquote, return of a Marvel mainstay, which someone's going to come back from the dead or be a new book that's a major Marvel character. And, of course, we've got Hulk and Iron Man and Thor who could all kind of come back. Or maybe even the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, could finally return after the end of Secret Wars. We're getting a bunch of new series. We're going back to the old legacy numbering. This was really strange to me and unexpected. They're bringing back the corner art on the covers.
Steve Ditko creation.
Yeah, and they're bringing back the Marvel value stamps, which you could trade in for Marvel items, I guess.
Just not digital copies.
Yeah. No, the digital copies are separately than this. The digital copies are coming back.
No, I'm okay.
But anyway, yes. And the Foom magazine is returning, which was surprising to me. I thought the most interesting is, like, a lot of people are reading this as like, oh, Marvel's ending their diversity thing. But if you look at their new lineup, it seems like a really solid mix of their old and new characters. So I don't think they're abandoning it. And there's that whole, Alex Ross book that's coming out this summer about the legacy characters teaming up. And I think that's the kind of thing here is they're going to bring back the old and mix it in with the new to emphasize, kind of this legacy, but also the legacy of their company. So I think before we recorded, Mark, I told you I thought that this was the wrong answer to a problem,
right?
But I'm not displeased by it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, let's be honest, Dan. At the end of the day, it's about the books that they're putting out. And if Marvel puts out good books with compelling characters and compelling stories that don't feel gimmicky and don't lead fans on without proper resolution, I think Marvel will regain its footing in the market again. But if it's just more gimmicks and more tricks and sleight of hands and baits and switches, it's not going to matter. Does that sound pretty fair?
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that they seem pretty reflective in this, thing we talked about last week. And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I'm still getting, if I still feel that the product is being diluted with too much content that's not focusing on quality, it's focusing on quantity. The fact that there are some vintage style corner art is not going to get me to buy a book.
I totally agree. It'll be interesting to see what the lineup looks like because DC had the right approach with Rebirth is that they really cut back their books and focused on quality. I don't think that quality is still there,
right.
But it was at one point, and that's why they saw that sales jump. I hope that this isn't just like a DC Rebirth with a facelift. Marvel's just trying to emulate Rebirth without actually doing what made Rebirth great. So we'll see if it's just if it's just the corner art on the covers and that's the Rebirth. I agree with you, Mark. It's not going to be enough to cook the books beyond the first couple issues.
Right. Well, we'll see. Yeah. So why don't we get to the closing of the show, Dan?
Yeah, well, of course, you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and our quite old Superior Spider Talk podcasts over at superiorspidertalk.com, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube by searching Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a review.
Additionally, be sure to check out our brother podcast, The Ultimate Spin, if you want to keep up with the adventures of Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen Stacy.
Mark, next week on the show, we're going to be having a guest for one of our Amazing Friends episodes. Who are we going to be talking to?
Yeah, Dan, we're firming up the details, but it looks like we're going to be having Nathan Stockman from Spidey and Renew Your Vows fame. He's a artist. Really excited to talk to Nate. He's from Ireland, So we're going to be dealing with some time zone stuff, but I think we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I'm excited to, it's like kind of a fresh face on the scene, but they seem to want to use him a lot. So I think he's going to be a Spidey artist that we all grow accustomed to over the next couple years. And he seems really excited about the opportunity. I just like watching him fight with Ryan Stegman on Twitter. That's the best thing of all.
Yeah, I mean, it made it very easy to pitch when I said, hey, we've had Stegman on. You got to come on now, buddy.
Cool. So I hope you'll tune in for that awesome interview, or what I imagine will be an awesome interview, because that's, frankly, Mark, that's all we do here at Amazing
That's what we do. We have the market cornered on awesome.
That's great. Well, in case people want to get more awesome, Mark, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, of course, you can find me on chasingamazingblog.com and on superiorspidertalk.com. And you can find me on Twitter at chasingasmblog. And please, please, please pre-order my book, 100 Things Spider-Man Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die, from Triumph Books, where all major books are sold. Dan, where can we find you?
I don't have a book on sale yet, but you can follow me on Twitter at SupSpiderTalk. And please be sure to check out SuperiorSpiderTalk.com. I gave the site a bit of a facelift, and I think it's going to be operating a lot smoother for everybody from here on out. So if you haven't checked it out, or if you have and you've lapsed, check us back out again. I think you're going to dig it. That's SuperiorSpiderTalk.com, the other half of this whole endeavor. Mark, we've talked a lot about your Uncle Ben over the years. Enough that the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. are contacting you about insurance
I'm in
scams.
trouble. Yep. Uh-huh.
Yep. Well, let's go back to a better time where your Uncle Ben was selling mob ties. And,
with Jimmy the Elbow.
With Jimmy the Elbow, who has killed him a number of times by kicking him.
Yes.
Yes. Those happier times. Well, he was selling his pretty quality ties, his mob ties.
Yeah.
And I heard that he had a, kind of rival businessman who was also making ties, these green and purple ties, who was trying to kind of like run him out of business, on the sly, how did Ben deal with this kind of like subtle, mob tie takeover?
Yeah, well, there's nothing worse in the world of mob ties, Dan, in like getting out muscled on your own turf. You know what I mean? Like, and my Uncle Ben, he was a bit of an alpha male. You know what I mean? So like, he didn't like being embarrassed in his own venue. So he did a little recon to find out who exactly was this person competing with him. And when he found out who it was, he went after him hard. So,
well, who was it?
It was this guy, Ned Oatsbon or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. It's irrelevant.
That's a weird name.
It's a very weird name. I'm just making stuff up. No, it's irrelevant because what happened was, Uncle Ben goes to like knock on Ned's door. As he goes into the door, he sees Ned. He's like, "Hey, I heard you're moving in on my turf." And Ned like jumps off and like gets on one of those like little razor scooters, and he just like starts to like pedal away. Like, and my Uncle Ben is like, "Crap, I'm in a high speed chase on a razor scooter." So he like grabs one, and he starts like pedaling after it. And as he's doing it, like these like minions are coming in, and Uncle Ben like kicked the guy, knocked him against the wall. He didn't die though, the guy, because Uncle Ben would never kill.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that too. You could see the stress that I was having on the other end of the microphone.
I know, right? I mean, we had to make that clear. So as like these two grown ass men are on their razor scooters, Dan. It just makes me mad talking about this. They ended up on like I-95 in Connecticut. Busy highway. Really shouldn't be on a razor scooter.
But beautiful trees.
Beautiful trees. And, a truck just came and hit my Uncle Ben. And, It knocked him off his razor scooter. And, unfortunately, unlike Uncle Ben, when he kicked the guy off his razor scooter, the truck driver really didn't care if he lived or died. I'm very upset. I can barely get through this right now. As my Uncle Ben laid there in the mess of his own blood and organs, he gurgled out, "Oh, God, why did I ride a razor scooter?" And with great podcasts must also come amazing spider talk.
Don't miss the next installment.
Who is he addressing that to?
To me, I was there.
Oh, how convenient. Were you the truck driver?
We don't talk about that, Dan.